Welcome to our webinar this afternoon on diversity and inclusion across cultures, with specific insight into India, Mexico, and Russia.
I think when you're looking at diversity and inclusion, it is important to remember the local cultural landscape and to understand that this diversity is very important and that one size fits all will just not work simply. Russia specifically, as you might know, homosexual marriage is prohibited. In 2013, the State Duma adopted a law which established responsibility for promoting non-traditional sexual relations among minors, and it's been referred to as prohibition of homosexual propaganda. In the same country, there are approximately 13 million people who live with disability. This often leads families with children with disability to abandon them, whether from a stigma perspective, representation, or also not being able to cater for their children's need. When it comes to India, it's important to understand that there are 26.8 million people who live with some kind of physical or mental disability. And to put this in perspective, this is more people than the whole of the Australian population, which is 25 million. And in terms of India, it's important to understand that it's one of the youngest countries in the world. The median age is 26 years old, and ageism or age discrimination happens quite a lot, despite there being a cultural norm of respecting the elderly. And it starts at the age of 40 for women and 45 for men, which obviously is very, very young. In Mexico, 2 in 3 women suffer from forms of violence, either at home or outside of home. In 2017, 23% of disabled people suffered discrimination as well. And looking at mental health, it's the second highest rate of discrimination in the world. Studies from McKinsey and the rest showcase that management teams that have ethnic and racial diversity are likely to reach higher returns financially by 35% than other groups. When it comes to external, I think gender progressive ads are proven to be 25% more effective. And this was a study by Unilever a few years ago. And one should think that this should really apply to all the other strands of diversity and inclusion.
8% of our population have disability, mental or physical. 30% of them are in the employment age. They potentially can work. And only 20% out of these 30%, they are really employed. Yeah, so they have real job. So social pension is $200 per month. Barrier-free environment is only available in big cities, right? So in small cities, it's almost impossible to move if a person is on a wheelchair. On the other hand, we have the governmental quota of closing from 2 to 4% of employees with people with disabilities. So we don't have infrastructure, we don't have like readiness of society, but we should employ people with disabilities, and we are successfully doing this in Philip Morris Russia. We have around 45 people with disability, which currently do a real job, not on the numbers. As for gender split at workplace, according to Russian statistics, the salary of a woman is 72% from the salary of a man. One important notice is that maternity leave can last up to 3 years from the date of birth of a child. So we as a company, as equal salary certified, we have a good gender split. I mean, like 42-43% when it comes to managers and supervisors, so they are female. But of course, and as in many companies, when it comes to board of directors, the numbers are different. So we are now thinking how we can form this female succession to the board members, at least in our country.
So coming back to India, you know, it is a born diverse country. So we have, I mean, if you look at the statistics here, 22 languages, 10 scripts, 1,600 dialects. Every 100 miles that one moves across the country, there's a change in the language. There's a change in the climate as well. There's a change in the cuisine that you eat. And of course, there's a change in language. And every region has, 3 or 4 religions which coexist with each other. So it is very, 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 very diverse. So we have 6 major religions. Of course, Hinduism is the majority. Patriarchy. patriarchy is very, 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 very strong in India, which means that men take all the decisions. Men are always the father figure. Men are the ones who go out and sort of are supposedly the bread earners of the family. And these traditions and beliefs and stereotypes have been embedded in everybody's mind. Second thing that I want to talk about is intrinsic divide. Of course, India is divided into the rural population and the urban population, but there is this entire stuff around the rural and urban also. In the rural side also, there are very, very rich farmers, the farming land, etc., up north towards Punjab, etc. Very, very rich farmers. They know what to do, but it's again driven by privilege, traditions, and beliefs. So there's this intrinsic divide of you are privileged or you are underprivileged. So, and which runs through both rural societies as well as urban societies. And that again cuts across via this entire aspect of the caste system that we are governed with, which we have been governed since time immemorial. So, of course, in couple of forward-looking urban societies, we sort of don't talk about caste so much and we don't believe in it. But of course, it's there when we move on to the rural societies and the way they function till date as well. Around the LGBT thing, we had a very nice judgment in 2018 where they recognized LGBTQ as people around in India. Otherwise, people were, the courts had actually said that nobody like that in India. So there is a lot of recognition around sexual orientation as well. And there's a lot of work around the transgender rights which have come in.
75% of men make decisions in Mexico. So for me, inclusion is about leadership. You can have a lot of people of different colors, different ethnicities, different genders, sexual orientation, but if your leadership doesn't look like that, then you don't have inclusion. Our traditions, it changed our culture, but something really important, it changed our religion. So 82.5% of people in Mexico are Catholics, and that defines our belief system, what we think it's okay, what we think is wrong, is very connected with patriarchy culture and is ingrained in our system. So why this is important? Because colonization created what I call the privilege gap. And so McKinsey talked about the leadership funnel, but I think in Mexico, the funnel starts since you are born. And this privilege gap is defined by the color of your skin and this like social difference. Mexico has one of the highest levels of inequality. So since you are born, your skin color, your these social differences define your education, define the privileges you have, and define the opportunities you have. If we go to statistics, as I mentioned, 2/3 of women in Mexico have experienced some form of violence. And I think that's two very important things that I want to mention. In 2019, we have a day without women. So countless women decided not to go to work, not to teach, not to go to hospitals. I was one of the ones that decided not to work that day. And it was a way for us to communicate our pain against violence and about women discrimination. I think the important thing right now is that we don't have all these people from these different pillars in leadership roles. And I think that's the important shift that it has to happen if we want to talk about inclusion and not just diversity. So I think that we have to move from a trend to an authentic motivation. And I think this will really change the things. I think we're still having like a shallow perspective on diversity and inclusion, but we haven't like really conquered the roots that create the symptoms that we're living today. And the other thing is that we have to move from changing people to changing organizations. So if you really want to have an inclusion culture, you have to change structures and you have to change mindsets and beliefs. I think companies need to like shift from a social need that is, of course, is the case, to a competitive advantage possibility. How is this connected to innovation? How is this connected to results? how we can like be a better organization, connect that with companies' values and have this global strategy. But at the end, you have to tropicalize your strategy to the local markets and to the local needs that are completely different. So I think something that is very important is to really have a comprehensive assessment or diagnosis to understand what are your global challenges as a company, but what are your pain points and your challenges as local markets, and have a combination. This global strategy will give you the vision, and the local strategy will somehow pinpoint the different things that you have to work on your local markets.
As I see the global functions serving for the markets, right? So it should be something like a shopping cart. So the global team, they have everything regardless of the country. And then I am from Russia, I select this and that. Then South Africans will select different programs, right? So, but for all of us, we should find something there. So to me, it's not like creating a global agenda. Yeah, it's creating a variety of agendas which can be adaptable for every market.
Of course, the technology companies have always been traditionally been very forward thinking in this aspect. And that also would come from the fact that they have a lot more employees. So for example, if I'm talking about an IBM or an Accenture, if you go to the Bangalore office, in one office, they have 30,000 people sitting, you know, they have buildings and buildings of people sitting in one place. So you have too many people and you definitely need to manage those people. Then you need to understand the diverse mix and how to, you know, sort of do inclusion right. So I think that the IT people, the IT human resources, the CXOs got it very early on in the game. The maternity benefit in India always had 3 months, and about 2 years back, it got increased to 6 months. So even with coming back the entire aspect of maternity returnee women, you know, talking about saying how do you, you know, sort of help those women coming back to work, etc. All those kind of policies came very, you know, it all started with the technology companies.
Well, I'm really inspired of US market. So because they have completely different view, not different, but like US companies, they already lived through what we are living now. So I cannot say that I have someone in particular. If you talk to if you read about the biggest companies in the US, I think we just can have a lot of examples which are inspiring us. And sometimes it's even worth not making a research around the companies in your country, if it's like Russia or maybe European country, but to see what is going on overseas. So we were doing that when we were understanding how we will live after COVID in new normal, right? And what will be the future of working arrangements. So, and then we were seeing what Salesforce, what Google is doing, so that how they will live after the COVID.
I was like, wanted to talk about a beer, Tecate. So they first have like a very terrible ad, and then I think they did a great job, like really sending a message to men, because you know the beer culture is very masculine culture, and so Tecate was talking about like rejecting any form of violence from men. So I think that was a great message. And I wanted to talk, this is not a Mexican, this is Procter & Gamble. And because a big part of my work right now is that I work with men. I have these men groups that are called he for she. And so I talk with men and we have discussions and everything. And so Procter & Gamble, yes, they call it the best man can be. So this is talking about toxic masculinity. And I love it. And they sparked a conversation around the beliefs and the behaviors that are socially promoted and that created like these toxic masculinities. So I'm really very happy with Procter & Gamble doing this, and I think we need more of that.
The unconscious bias that women face, I don't think it's just an Indian context. I think it, you know, women end up facing it in all the contexts across the world. Sometimes, most of the time, we are in our own mind thinking that, oh, that person did like that. And we are thinking, oh, that person said like that. And we actually don't open up. I think in India, at least, there was some kind of a research also which came out saying 65% of the women do not speak out. Half of the time, the manager said that, she put in a paper, she did not even say that she's wanting to go. And the woman is saying the manager never told me to stay back. So the entire aspect is all about communication. So again, I do understand. And I'm here also maybe trying to say that, the person, your manager who did not include you in your lunches, etc., not right. But try and make an amend to understand the other perspective also and give your point of view. If it is wrong, then, sort of speak it out. And that is how change will happen.
Just a small comment about bias. It's not only about gender. So a man new hire versus a man who is staying in the company 20 years, they can also have biases towards each other. A woman with kids, 3 kids, and a woman without kids who is building her career currently at this moment, they can also have different views and different biases. But what I like now is that almost all big FMCG international companies, they have bias course, online course. It's very good to take it online, not a classroom even. So we do that. We teach people to accept that we all have biases, and we teach people to speak up in case you think that someone is biased, not against you, but maybe against other people.
I will say that the most important thing, more than saying like what's the budget or the time, is how important is to connect the DE&I with the strategy of the company. And that's, that's the key driver. If it's still a project, there's companies that they have like a DE&I project that is something that is not part of a business. It will not work. They will not invest time, and they will have, certain people. Most of the time, those people are part of the pillars. So they are doing their own fight. And I think that doesn't work. So I think most important, like really good budget and time will be invested if this becomes part of the strategy, and if this is connected to a competitive advantage, and if the company understands that this is crucial for performance. And so I will say that I don't have that data, but I will say that companies that are really thriving on the DE&I strategy are very, I will say, they know that this is a driver for the business and not just a project or a trend.
It needs to be connected to your business results. If it is not, then of course it will be piecemeal, and those piecemeal budgets, which it's basically thrown away for transactional stuff, will not make any difference. As a consulting firm with Beyond Diversity. So the point is, till the time it's not connected to the business results, the money will never come, because the money comes from business. There is no specific, D&I budget in any of the companies, be it a multinational company or be it a local company in India. At least that's what I have seen over the last 10 years. So till the time it's not a business imperative, the CEO or the CXOs, they will never take out the money, which is important.
What I can add here or from the side of a client is that we should allocate our budget to consultants, because they know their job better, really. Because for some, especially small markets, like you cannot allocate a special team who will be doing that. So, and though it is recommended to have them like local, like Ksenia, who should have presented today. Yes, she's a local consultant. She knows what are trends, what are other companies doing.
I will complement this saying that it's not just the budget you have, but how do you invest the budget? So, like companies have invested, for example, in women training a lot of money, but, there's still not a lot of women in leadership roles. So I think that the thing is that companies have to shift from like just training and investing on diversity and inclusion training or pillars to a cultural change.
Here, what we need to understand is, again, not look at those pillars. So we need to say that, we need to build inclusion, And if you do inclusion right, then any kind of diversity will follow. Then you have to don't pillarize it and say, oh, it's women diversity, or it's LGBT diversity, or it is disability diversity. So the entire aspect right now, we should be looking at, are we respecting people? You know, the entire pillar should be about respect, belongingness. It should be about questioning. It should be about speaking up. That should be the culture. And it's all a culture game at the end of the day.
Are we working on the symptoms, or are we working on the things that created the symptoms? So I think if anyone here is thinking on how to invest the budget you have, please invest it in the right things, and that is going deep into what created the symptoms, because if you just work with the symptoms, you will have the same problem again and again.
It's not mainly about brands, but it's about positive discrimination, right? So if you put too much focus on female population, so that you would reject some of internal moves or external candidates because of the fact that you need to hire a woman for this position, then you cannot do a worse thing for your organization. There are different mechanics for that, but positive discrimination is very bad. If, for example, you are going through a massive organization change and you leave, I'm just imagining the situation now, and if you leave people with disabilities to stay and other to go, this is also a very bad example of positive discrimination. So it's, in my opinion, this is the major mistake you can make. And of course, for the brands, I think it's sometimes we do not adapt like a global brand strategy to the local markets, right? And so now with the development of social media, it may have very bad influence on the reputation of the brand. So that's why I think that improper adaptation can also be a big problem in this case.
So I would say that, take a very localized approach. Do not think that what has worked in one geography will work in another geography. So empathize to the situation, understand the situation. So you also need to be diversity and inclusion. You also need to do it totally. So understand it, because every situation is different than the other. And then take a localized approach. Of course, you can get in best practices, but figure out whether those best practices will work in that local situation, in the local cultural context or not. I think that is very, very important for any brands whenever they enter a new market, or that mistake, if they can sort of rectify, I think it will work out very well.